Welcome to Blind Level Tech. This isn't just accessible tech talk. This is technology on a whole new level. We're showing you just how possible it is to live the life you want.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Blind Level Tech. I'm not doing the deep voicing this time around, but I am your host, Evan Starnes, and I am not joined by my co-host, Kelvin Crosby, today. He's like end of the year busy with his other projects, Steph Blind Potter and See Me Kane, and just a bunch of other personal things. So he could not make it on today, but that's okay because we have a really, really exciting guest on and a good friend of the Aftersight and a good friend of the show. But first, before we get into that, our tech piece of the week. Okay, so my tech piece of the week, this is definitely a big tech wish, and I actually can't believe I didn't know about this up until like a couple of days ago when I was on a Team Talk server with friends. But good old Humanware has released this. It's a Braille display, but it's like a multi-line Braille display, and it's called the Monarch. And basically, what it is you've got 5 lines, I think 32 characters per line, and then you got another line at the bottom that's just your standard like 32 cell Braille display. And this is really good for like solving math problems and like, multi-line, stuff that you need to really be able to read multiple lines at the same time. You can't just go up and down and up and down. And why this thing's such a tech wish is because Braille displays are expensive. And let's just say this thing's sitting around about $18,000. But I think it's super cool, and I really, really want to see one. And it would be cool to do an episode on one. So, hey, if anybody at Humanware's listening, send us one. We really want to test it out and cover it. It's a cool product, and I want to see more of this multi-line technology become available because I think it's the kind of the next thing for Braille display technology. My opinion, of course. All right, so let's cut to the chase here. Quite a while ago, back in March, we had Ted Taquechi on to talk about what he's doing with tactile art. And a lot has happened, Ted, since we've had you on. And honestly, it's super great to have you on BLT. And we got to be careful about our duration here because we can blob for a long time. But welcome to the show, Ted. How's your morning been treating you as we're recording this?
Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's a beautiful morning here in Colorado. So
it sure is.
It's been an absolutely crazy year for us. So can't wait to tell you all about it.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, do you actually have, since we haven't had a guest on, do you have a tech piece of the week?
Last time I was on, I talked about Ira. And I would say that it would probably be appropriate for me to use that again if that's an okay thing.
100%.
Because we used them this whole summer when we were traveling all over the place. We have been funded by Flight for Sight to travel kind of the U.S. this whole year and create awesome photography so that we could make these cool tactile prints. And as part of that, we used Ira just about everywhere we went, and it was really cool. It gave me a lot of independence to be able to actually lead the way in a lot of situations, to actually find our hotel room and find my way to the luggage retrieval places in the airport, or find my way to the gate. Their agents are just so cool. You pop on, and it's kind of, I thought originally it was going to kind of be similar to a Be My Eyes, kind of that type thing, but their Access AI feature where you can take a picture and have their system evaluate the picture and tell you what you're actually seeing and then do follow-up questions is just really cool.
It is really cool. Iris honestly had a lot of really incredible they've had a lot of cool little updates, over the past like year and a half, including Access AI. And honestly, I'll be real. Like when Access AI first became a thing, I kind of thought to myself like, okay, this is just going to be kind of like, Be My AI. But then, I I signed up for the beta and then tried it, and I was pleasantly surprised.
I agree.
At the
And I would
differences.
say that, being able to go into a restaurant and actually have a little bit more information about the scene where you're at. And it's really focused on things, like where the food is on the table. It really does a good job. And I would say that, one of the things that was really cool for me is, we were recently in Moab taking pictures for our project. And I actually took the IRA app out on one of the trails and was wandering one of the backwood trails in Moab by myself in 108 degrees temperature, by the way.
Wow.
And they led me, all along the trail, and it was not a well-marked trail. So between that and my cane, I rocked it with them. It was really great.
That's really incredible. Well, with the holidays, especially upon us, Christmas just like oh my gosh, a few days away. Holy cow. I never thought this year would come to an end, but it's been one heck of a year. But a lot of people are traveling, especially during this time, both, out of state or, even to distant family locations or hotel spaces. And, we did do like an episode on, traveling as a blind person, but never really kind of touched on how to actually safely travel especially during holidays, because boy, are they different than just, traveling on any given day. And
No kidding.
you've been doing some stuff with United and been working quite a lot with them, and because you're one heck of a traveler. You get around. Can we kind of talk about the experiences that you've had with United and where that's taken you? Pun intended.
For sure. First of all, I run a website called blindtravels.com. And on that website, we, do reviews of destinations from the perspective of us, from, somebody who's blind or visually impaired. And basically what a review entails on our site is it gives you kind of the lay of the land when you're walking into the hotel. It tells you kind of, where from the door the check-in desk is, where the elevators are located, restaurants and other kind of important destinations in the hotel. And for me, it originally started as kind of a database of information so that I would be able to kind of have information when I walked into a new location, because we all, if we're blind travelers, we like to do our research. We need to know what's going on around us and that sort of stuff. And that's kind of what this came out of. And so, we utilize all kinds of different travel providers, Southwest, American, United, but we've been working with the guys from Flight for Sight this whole summer, and we've been traveling specifically on United for this whole project. And I would say that they being United have really stepped up their game in terms of accessibility for people who are vision impaired. And you don't have to have your dog, and you just need to let them know. If you pre-board like we do most of the time, then they are so good about sitting down with you. They get you to your seat if you're flying solo. They make sure that you're okay, and most importantly, they make sure that you are okay with understanding the things that you need to know about air travel in the case of an emergency. So they tell you where the exits are, right? So, I mean, that's one thing that would always be, major confusion if there was an issue and you had to get off of a plane. But they also make sure that they tell you where to put your bag if you need help with that, and kind of give you the information that you need for making sure that if you're not a common, if you don't travel a lot, if you're not a seasoned traveler like I am, an old grizzled traveler, they let you know that there's storage under the seat in front of you. And if you need help figuring out, where to put your bag or whatever, they are all on it. And, even if you want help making sure that all of your items are picked up at the end of a flight, they will totally do that. They're just doing a really good job, and they're kind of what I would consider to be an example of quality when it comes to accessibility. And I'm not sponsored by United. I have nothing to do with them. I've just, it's just one of those things that they've just done a really good job. So everybody needs to know.
Well, and there have been some controversies, to my knowledge, with United in the past a while ago, with lack of, accessibility on their side. And then, they kind of stepped up their game like big time and, made all these changes. Now, one thing I'm definitely curious about, I hear a lot about how flight attendants and the like they're supposed to be trained to work with individuals, with blindness, low vision, or other disabilities of sorts. And would you feel like that's definitely the case here? You haven't had have you had to deal with anybody being, I don't know, patronizing or just not treating you equally?
Yeah, I would say that they have definitely done some level of training, and I would say that United as a whole have done it in tiers, right? So I would say a couple of years ago, over the last couple of years, they kind of started with making sure that they got you to your gate, right? So they kind of stepped that up, and they stepped up their customer service with, getting you to where you need to be in the airport. And then the next level was actually being on the plane. So, I mean, for me, getting to the gate is important, but also if you're not a seasoned traveler and if you don't know where things are in the plane, having that 2 or 3 minute time for them to just tell you where the things are and what to expect during the flight, it means a lot.
It sure does. Well, and how would they make things like their, especially if you want to do, in-flight accommodations, if you want to get a drink or whatever, do they have a Braille menu, or do they read it out loud to you, or?
Well, what's really nice is a lot of times all of I think it's all of them now are doing the contactless payments, which is really nice. Yeah. So if you have the United app, you just put your credit card in there and they charge it right on the app, which is really cool. So it's, you don't have to deal with trying to figure out where your credit card is and trying to figure out how to tip and all that kind of stuff. It just works, and it's so much better. And I don't think that I've had to deal with any kind of patronizing stuff. I would say that if anything, they've been, almost overly helpful. Even times when I was kind of in a hurry, they still took the time to come and sit down. And they're like, "Hey, I know you're just getting settled and that kind of stuff. Do you have any questions?" So it's kind of been, whether you needed more help or less help, they kind of were cognizant of that, your needs, which was really cool. And when it came to, like you were saying, for reading the menus, they have no problems telling you, at least as all of the trips that we took this summer, the flight attendants were, happy to say, okay, we offer these alcoholic beverages and these, sodas. And, I would say the only thing where they kind of tripped up was when it came to snacks. So if you have specific dietary restrictions or whatever, they weren't very good about telling you about, if there was, just something that like peanuts or whatever, if you had allergies or whatever. But otherwise, I mean, you got to start somewhere, right? And they're doing a pretty okay job.
No, that's really highly impressive. And the reason I was
shocked.
I'm shocked. I haven't even written them yet, but the reason I bring up too the whole patronizing thing is it is an issue that we have to deal with just in public, in the sighted world. So I'm sure I'm personally, it's always been my biggest concern is just being respected, I guess, is
being treated like another guest, but also having that level of information if you need it, which is really cool.
Actually, yeah, absolutely, and you have the options. They give you open options. That's awesome. Now. How about too when you get off the plane too? Do they also give you kind of support, up the runway and to baggage claim, or is that something? Because Kelvin and I were talking about that.
They're really good if you let them know, and I'll tell you that they've actually took it to the next level compared to most other airlines about my other flights. But for the most part, when you're checking in, if you say I'd like help getting to the gate, they will absolutely either walk with you, or most of the time they'll put you in a wheelchair, which, I don't need a wheelchair, but I'm happy to have them, more effectively get me from point A to point B. And that's kind of the big reason that they put you into a wheelchair, is because they can kind of speed through the airport and not have to kind of drag you along, tethered onto their arm or whatever. So it just, that's one of those things that as long as you're okay with it and just, sit down and enjoy the ride and just be okay with it.
Bite the bullet.
But we, on one of the last trips that we were on most recently, we had not asked for any assistance to get there. My wife was with me, and the flight attendant apparently, after we sat down, had called ahead because she said, "I noticed that you didn't have a wheelchair or assistance to get to the baggage claim reserved. So I went ahead and did that for you," which was like, wow, okay.
Cool. Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah.
How would you say, the accessibility is on their website when, and their app when, booking flights and keeping tabs on your current flights. And
I mean, as far as United goes, I like their app. I like the fact that they give you notifications. So they send, as long as you have it set up so that they can send you text notifications, they will tell you, what gate you're at, which for me is invaluable because you don't have to, if you're trying to navigate by yourself, which is what I do a lot of times, then I don't have to try and find somebody to read the big board of all the flights and try to figure out what gate I'm at to make sure that I'm at the right one. They actually send you that information via text, which is great. And then when you land, they say, welcome to your destination and your baggage is going to be on blah number, which is, again, another one of those things. No, I don't know how much more they could do.
Yeah. So they've pretty much covered all their bases, it sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm definitely excited to check them out. Now,
yeah.
During the holidays too, like I said, kind of at the beginning of this episode, trying to get flights and travel during the holidays is kind of almost not vastly, but fairly different from traveling, if you were just going to a convention or, just on any other given day. But do you have any like tips or recommendations? I know it's probably too late now, with Christmas only a few days away, but what would you recommend to people that need to go out of state and that need to take flights and, those just happen to be like Christmas or Thanksgiving or what have you?
Yeah. And that's one of those things. So just like you said, holiday travel is definitely different than any other time of year. You have to realize that the poor people that are sitting behind the desk that are checking in, person after person, in crazy holiday mode, they're having rough days, right?
Yeah.
And you got to realize that a lot of times they may be curt or they may be short or whatever. And I always say, without hesitation, always pack your patience and always pack a good attitude, because if there's nothing else that you bring along with you other than patience and a good attitude, then you're going to be good, right?
Right. Yeah.
It's just one of those things that, people are stressed during the holidays, doesn't matter what it is. And another thing that I always say is that even if you are a seasoned old grizzled traveler like I am, during the holidays especially, they're going to have things that are moved around. So if you're confident in traveling from point A to point B, and for the most part where things are, just still make sure that you're kind of on high alert, because there are Christmas decorations and Christmas trees and signs and, all these things that are always in places where you wouldn't expect. And a lot of times they have, kind of no cognizant, thoughts about where they put stuff like that, other than the fact that it's, for the fully sighted people to enjoy, so it's, you just got to be careful and on high alert for me as during the holidays.
Yeah. I think the thing to keep in mind is that, yes, you're stressed and everybody else is stressed, but if you want to feed the fire of stress, you can choose to do that and then have a terrible in-flight experience potentially.
Yeah. And I always recommend to pay it forward. So if you have the opportunity to, I always bring a pocket full of, $5 bills. So the person that drives you to the gate, give them a $5. It's the holidays,
Mm-hmm.
Make sure you pay it forward so that the person that's coming after you that's blind or visually impaired, they kind of have that grease the wheels, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Hey, you know what else you can get with $5 bills too?
What's that?
The sandwich of the week.
So I was wondering, Ted, when Kelvin and I were on, a few episodes ago now, we were trying to kind of think of like a good, like Thanksgiving-y, holiday-y sandwich. And I'd kind of come up with like a turkey one, but do you have like a sandwich that would fit well in, kind of the winter holidays, Christmas, Hanukkah, all that?
For me, Thanksgiving, I can't think of anything else other than a sandwich when it comes to Thanksgiving. I love the turkey, I love the stuffing, all that good stuff. But for me, 2 slices of classic Wonder Bread with a little bit of mayo, some salt and pepper, and that slab of turkey. And my wife always does the smoked turkey on our smoker. So it just adds that extra yum yum. But I mean, for me, I like the Thanksgiving meal, but it's always about the sandwich for me, for the turkey sandwich afterwards.
Wow, that's really cool.
And it's boring too. It's
No.
just the mayo.
Yeah, but it's like you mentioned like pepper. Like how they have like that black pepper beef jerky that's really good.
Yeah.
That's kind of what that reminded me of. I mean, it's beef and turkey, two different things, but sounds like you could get similar flavors in that way.
Yeah. A little bit of spice. It's good.
Yeah.
It's always good. Yeah.
Well, one thing that I always love to go back to good old grandma and her lovely cooking, but one thing that she used to love to make around this time, and pretty much any time, but she was really good with Italian sausage and sauce. Like she makes really, really good like spaghetti sauces and stuff. But what she'd do is make, like she'd cook Italian sausage, cut it up, and then put it in like a bun. And then, it was kind of like a sausage kind of esque sandwich. It didn't have like a slab of meat or anything, but it was chunks of sausage. Really, really, it could get kind of messy, but it was really tasty all the same.
It makes it better, right?
It does make it better. So to be honest, my sandwich this week is it's going to be that stretched hot dog Italian sausage sandwich. Well, Ted, before we wrap up this episode, is there anything you'd like the audience to kind of know about, what you're up to? And, is there anything you'd like the audience to walk away with? We could make a whole other episode, for crying out loud.
I would definitely say, check out blindtravels.com. We have been adding, so many new articles, new reviews, new destinations to it. We review national parks, we review hotels, you name it, we do it. And we're working very hard to expand that. It seems like a kind of a nonstop thing for us because we're always going someplace. We're always working with hotels. We're always doing all these fun and fantastical things with that site. So definitely check that out, and definitely follow me on social media. You can do it at Nedskee, Nedskee, and I'm at X. I'm at Blue Sky, Facebook. You name it. Just come and hang out. And if you have any questions, feel free to shoot me a message.
Absolutely. Heck yeah. Well, Ted, thank you so much for being on for being on BLT today, and we'll definitely be sure to drop your website in the description of the show as well, so people can check that out. And thank you guys so much for listening to another episode of Blind Level Tech. With that being said, this is going to be a wrap for this episode. We really hope you guys have a Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, whatever holidays you celebrate. We hope that they're happy, and we thank you for continuing to support the show and listen and provide feedback and guest suggestions. And even, hey, some of you have been on the show before, and it has been awesome having you on. So thank you all so much. With that being said, I've been your host, Evan Starnes, and I'm sadly not joined by Kelvin Crosby today, but would like to remind you all to not forget to plug in your devices. And we'll see you all again next week.